Amazon, Amazon, what are you doing, Amazon? This is not the show we want. Go away, Amazon. Is this guy supposed to be Sauron? I think not, Amazon. Go home, you drunk Amazon. Sorry. I had to indulge myself. Uh, Amazon, what are you doing? Seriously. They're still being intentionally deaf about fan feedback. They're not listening to the fans at all. And they will not listen to them from here on out. That's become clear in recent months. This is from December 20th, this article. Amazon Studios executive Vernon Sanders, who is the head of global television, recently admitted that the company is still completely ignoring fan feedback surrounding Rings of Power. I'm not calling it Lord of the Rings. And that's her there, Vernon Sanders. Or oh no, it's him. It's that guy, Vernon Sanders. It's a dude. Okay, Vernon is not a girl's name. And Jennifer Salke, I've heard of her. She's the head of Amazon Studios. Um, yeah, more on her later. Speaking with comicbook.com, Sanders first admitted that the company conducted their own study to try and determine how people reacted to the show. He relayed, "We set up our own study with thousands of people, among them thousands of Lord of the Rings fans, to really have a conversation with them as each episode dropped to just understand how they were reacting. I wonder if you were able to tear them away from House of the Dragon to ask long enough to ask them that. We were doing as much of a 360 comprehensive look to really understand it, and I think we got a lot of those Lord of the Rings fans, both fans of the books and fans of the movies," he claimed. Sanders then admitted, "We also know that there were some fans who had issues or didn't feel like this was what they were expecting or done in the way that they expected, and that's natural. I think whenever you take on something that's so beloved, you're going to have probably a strong reaction for and have some people who just aren't on board. Yeah, no shit." He didn't go into any other details, but Amazon Studios and Prime Video embarrassed themselves when they claimed to have brought a number of the Lord of the Rings super fans, quote unquote, to a special screening of the show's trailer in Mallorca. Yeah, I've seen that video. It's really cringe. These super fans didn't seem at all interested in The Lord of the Rings when they cut a number of promotional videos attempting to promote the show. Rather, they put a focus on identity politics instead. Yeah, that's all they talked about. They didn't talk about the story. Like the most they talked about the story was, "Oh, I really want Galadriel's dagger, and I want to see Sauron corrupting people. Like I can change him." You need to watch this video if you haven't seen it before. It's so stupid. I think it was like almost an hour long, something like that. Like, oh man. And I was cutting some of it into a video, and I just got tired of it because I didn't want to watch. I didn't want to keep watching that video over and over. One superfan stated when asked to describe the trailer, "I also want to say representative because we're getting like more diversity within this series. Like we're seeing our first black elf. Not true. D&D's had black elves forever. We're seeing the first female dwarf. Not true. The Hobbit movies actually had female dwarves in them. I'm very looking forward to looking at that." See, if these were actual fans, they would know this shit. Not only were these so-called superfans pushing identity politics rather than discussing Tolkien and Lord of the Rings, one of them later admitted to not even watching the show. Yeah, I think there were two of them that actually admitted to not watching it yet when it premiered. YouTuber Ryan Kinnell discovered that Chanel Williams, one of the so-called superfans, did a video where she revealed she hadn't even watched any of the show. She claimed she was going to binge it once its season ended, but also revealed she was watching House of the Dragon weekly. See, I told you. People were watching House of the Dragon more than Rings of Power because it was a better show, obviously. So, if the people Amazon used to perform their study are anything like their so called superfans they flew into Mallorca to watch the trailer, their study is probably heavily skewed, and some of them might not even have watched their show altogether. However, that wasn't even the biggest reveal that Sanders made. He actually briefly discussed the Charlie Vickers Halbrand being revealed as Sauron in the final episode. I've heard the showrunners talk about this, like they claim to be trying to stick to the books, but then at the same time they wanted this big twist. Like that's not what that's not how Tolkien wrote his books. Like you should stop trying to fiddle with it. Like people are not gonna like that. So he's revealed at Sauron in the final episode. While discussing Sauron, Sanders made it clear Amazon Studios and Prime Video are not listening to actual fans of Tolkien and Lord of the Rings, who have made it abundantly clear the show is terrible, mainly due to the fact that it completely threw Tolkien's writing into the waste bin in favor of modern, woke sensibilities. And you can tell that just by watching the show. Sanders said one of the challenges for this show when you're adapting something is to tell the story that people are excited to see, but sometimes find ways to surprise them. Sauron, I would argue, the greatest villain of all time, and how do you get to know that person? How do you get to understand how they work? What are the layers there? And I think because of the way the story was told and because of the great performances of Charlie Vickers and Morfydd Clark, I think audiences now have an insight whether he fooled them or whether they knew it the entire time. There's a much more interpersonal human side of this character, and I'm so excited for people to see Sauron unleashed in season 2, he stated. Anyone anyone watching this show would have seen from the get-go that this guy was Sauron. Like they they pretty much broadcast it right off the bat. From everything he says, like I have plans of my own. And what else did he say that was telling? Oh, I have you see him pass by a forge and he looks at it longingly, like, he's like, that's foreshadowing, you guys. Foreshadowing. We're gonna hit you over the head with this shit. So, and then he's given advice to Galadriel on like how to manipulate people, basically, which she does during the show. She manipulates people. Except the show butchers the character of Sauron. Yep. They don't show his actual fall, his chance at repentance, penance, and obedience, his rejection of it, and then his complete turning into a reincarnation of evil. Tolkien laid out Sauron's character arc in letter 131 to Milton Waldman, writing, in the Silmarillion and Tales of the First Age, Sauron was a being of Valinor perverted to the service of the enemy and becoming his chief captain and servant. Yet the enemy here referring to Morgoth, or Melkor as he was known before he fell to darkness. Tolkien continued, he repents in fear when the first enemy is utterly defeated, but in the end does not do as was commanded, return to the judgment of the gods. He lingers in Middle-earth, very slowly, beginning with fair motives. The reorganizing and rehabilitation of the ruin of Middle-earth, neglected by the gods, quote-unquote. He becomes a reincarnation of evil and a thing lusting for complete power, and so consumed ever more fiercely with hate, especially of gods and elves. All through the twilight of the Second Age, the shadow is growing in the east of Middle-earth, spreading its sway more and more over men, who multiply as the elves begin to fade, the professor asserted. By the time of the events of the Second Age that the Rings of Power portrays, Sauron has already chosen his path and has completely rejected forgiveness, repentance, penance, and obedience. His interpersonal side has been consumed by his hate and lust for power. That's not to say he doesn't play the role of Anatar by deceiving the elves and aiding them to create the Rings of Power. He clearly does this in Tolkien's work, and it is indeed a role that he plays fueled by his hatred and lust for power. He deceives the elves and uses their own pride to aid them in the crafting of the Rings of Power and eventually the One Ring. So this is right here. This is a big problem that people had with first season of Rings of Power. The whole forging of the rings was rushed in the last episode, and we never saw Anatar. Like that's what people were expecting to see Anatar. That's a basically a disguise that Sauron puts on to seduce the elves into helping him create these rings. Like he was Celebrimbor, they actually made kind of a buffoon, like doesn't even know how to utilize alloys, and he's supposed to be the master smith of the elves. Like that's one huge problem I had with this. And yeah, it just would have been cool to see him actually play these people like chess pieces, but in the end he just sort of was there and giving Celebrimbor advice, but it wasn't even his idea to make the three rings, or he wasn't even making the one ring or anything. So a wasted opportunity completely. Yeah, the Rings of Power completely cast this wildly interesting and intriguing story in the trash because they claimed they wanted to surprise people. Like this is not supposed to be the point of an adaptation. You're supposed to be honoring what came before. Like if the filmmakers who made the Harry Potter movies decided at the last minute, like, oh, Harry's actually not going to survive his encounter with Voldemort. Like, he's going to die for good. Like, don't you think people would be pissed about that? Or if they swapped out like one character who died for another one who survived in the books, like people would be pissed. Like, that's not how it happened. Come on, it's stupid. They didn't just want to surprise people. They fell to the will of Sauron themselves and thought they could tell the story better than Tolkien. Yeah, I've been saying this forever. Like, who do you think you are? Thinking you can write better than Tolkien? Like, what, you fucking arrogant bastards. They can't, as the first season proves. And the fact that Sanders admits the focus on Sauron on the first season was to try to humanize him proves that. It also proves that despite whatever studies they have performed, they are clearly not listening to Tolkien or the Lord of the Rings fans. Yeah, this was just a dumpster fire of a first season. I no telling what they're gonna do in the second season. I heard they're doubling down, like they're gonna have an all-female director lineup. You see, it's just identity politics. That's the only thing they're focusing on. They're not actually worried about the story or how fans react to that. They're just, it's all a show to them, like a smoke and mirrors kind of thing. Like, I probably won't watch season two. I might still cover the news surrounding it because it's pretty funny. But yeah. Oh man. If you like this video, click the like, share, subscribe, and thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.